Okay, here we are. If you want to hear today about who the dollar store Obama is, or APAC Shakur, you're in the right spot. This is The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. This is an anti-leftist show, which means we are anti-Democrat. If you are still voting for Democrats, you are either in on the scam or you got something wrong with you. We're hopefully going to be the antidote to that. All right, we got a great show today for you. We're going to get into the wrap-up smear, and Pelosi's going to explain it for us. And it's going to explain, your eyes are going to open. Hearing her explain it, she's a great teacher for the dark arts. We're going to get into that, and then we're going to tie it into all of these things, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Virginia stuff, all of it. It explains essentially the entire policy or model for the Democrat Party today. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to go over this big macro concept that I've shared before, and some technological things got in our way. So we're going to use the Three Stooges. I love the Three Stooges. They're hilarious. In this case, this is like a documentary. This is like a political documentary. I'm going to share a snippet from an episode called Ants in the Pantry. They are exterminators who can't get any work. So they're about to get fired. To drum up work, they go out and they find a house, and they go to the back of the house and they load it full of rodents and bugs and creepy crawly things. And then they walk around to the front and they knock on the door and say, "Do you need an exterminator?" Ants in the Pantry. We're going to watch this one first, and then we are going to talk about it. Let's see if this works.
What is it? Pardon me, got any mice, insects, ants, or bugs you want exterminated?
Heaven must have sent you to us. We are overrun by them. Come right in, gentlemen.
Please wait here.
Watch this.
My word, God. What are these?
These are the pest exterminators, madam.
Well, if you gentlemen will exterminate them without letting my guests know, I shall reward you handsomely.
You can depend on us to...
Okay. There's more to it. I highly recommend you go watch it. It's a great episode. But the point being, they create the problem. They go in, and why I made a special note of when Mo puts the mouse on the guy once he's inside, is that even when they're inside, supposedly fixing it, they're really not fixing it. They're making it worse. This is government. Think about any situation with government. We can take today, I'm going to take, because it's on my mind, the Maha stuff with the pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies get the government to okay filling us full of chemicals through vaccines and through our food. Then what do? The government says, hey, you need us to help fix this for you, meaning for us, ordinary Americans. And we say, okay, we're so terrible, we're sick, please help us. So what do? They regulate it. What happens? Mo just puts another mouse on the guy in the house. It just gets worse. They aren't fixing it. That's ants in a pantry. Okay, that's government. That's everything in any situation you can think of with government. The elites, experts, and elected class start all of the great calamities. They probably start all of the calamities, but I hate to say always and never, because usually there's exceptions. The experts, they all start the calamities. They think they control leftism. They think they can control everything, and they think they control for all the factors, and they're super smart, and that they need to be in control. It never works. Death and suffering. Okay, ants in the pantry. Now, we're going to skip over to Pelosi talking about the wrap-up smear. What's the wrap-up smear? Hold on one second. Is that it? Yeah, there it is. Okay. What's the wrap-up smear, you ask? Well, let's let Nancy Pelosi describe it for us. Hold on one second. Here we go.
We call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this, So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
How about that? I almost want to play it again. The wrap-up smear. Here's how she described it. You manufacture something, and she said it's a falsehood. Think Russia collusion, Russia hoax. You're just going to manufacture it. Hillary pays for the fake dossier. By the way, money went to Russians for that. Okay, she pays for the dossier, a fake falsehood, as Pelosi says. And then what do? They get some idiot, total corruptocrat writer to write about it. And as she points out to that group of reporters, we get you to write about it, she says. And then that validates it. So in the Russia hoax, they got reporters to write about the dossier, and that validated it. Then what happened? Then Comey and the rest of the corruptocrats went and said, look, that's something we should investigate. That's the predicate for the investigation. It was all fake from the beginning. And Pelosi is there telling you that this is what they do. And then as she points out, we merchandise it. That's the part when you hear these people repeat over and over. Do you remember? I wish I had it. I think I had it for yesterday. There's a great Maze Moore, great X account. Unbelievable. I don't know them, him, her, he, she, they, whatever. I don't know. Okay, but great account. He has a clip of Biden talking about how the reason that he decided to run for president was because of the very fine people hoax. Now, Biden didn't say it that way. He repeated the description saying that Trump's veins were bulging out of his neck. And Maze Moore has this great clip where he shows Biden say this like 70 times. That's merchandising the falsehood that Pelosi says they created, that they got the press to report on, like dutiful bootlickers that they are. And by the way, if you're wondering why the press has such a low approval rating and nobody trusts them, because we finally figured out the wrap-up smear, and we have enough alternatives where we can get the real information. Today we have AI, which we can get the real information from. But before that, we had Rogan and some of the people on Fox, Hannity, Levin, Bongino, Adam Carolla was another one. Like we had people that we get real information from. Other podcasters, shows like this one. The Russian hoax, it was exactly that. Or go to the laptop story with the 51, Intel intelligence community people who said it's a hallmark of Russian disinformation. No, it's not. They manufactured that, and then they produced it, and they got the press to write about it. That gets validation, and then they merchandise it, and they push it out. That's the Democrat Party. There's nothing else. Right now, if you had to be a gun to your head, what are the 5 top policy issues that the Democrats talk about? I can't name them. I get stuck at number 1. Trump sucks. That's their policy. Oh, is their policy? We want to tax the poop out of you till you're bleeding out of your eyes. And by the way, we're going to come after you even if you move. And we're going to make sure that we're giving away to illegal aliens and anybody else that we can figure out to give away all your tax dollars. And you can't look at anything. That's the policy they run on? No. They can't run on policies because nobody wants their policies. Go back to James Carville from just a few days ago. This all intertwines. James Carville. Don't talk about it. Don't run on it. Just get in and do it. Talking about leftism. Talking about the evil things he's going to do. Go back further to a bunch of episodes when we showed you Jonathan Gruber, who was the architect of Obamacare. Obamacare, when Obama said the most famous lie, certainly in the last 30 years by a politician, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That was not true, and he knew it. By the way, that's a similar version of the wrap-up smear. They made that up, and they merchandised it. They got the press to write it, and all of a sudden it becomes true. Gruber said on video, which we showed, I'm sure we'll show it again. We had to lie to the American people because they never would have voted for it if we told them the truth. Hey, I would have preferred to tell the truth, he said, but I really wanted this bill. That's the Thomas Sowell vision of the anointed. That's leftism. He knew that it was more important to get his idea in the society than it was to have the people have an honest vote about what was really going on. He knew it. Now, he was wrong. They're always wrong. And what's happened? A lot of suffering. Okay, this is the wrap-up smear. This is the Democrat Party. They can't run on anything because they have no policies that make any sense. None. I just saw an article, I didn't pull it up, that talked about the East Village women who voted overwhelmingly, I think it was like 70% for Mandami, are now pissed because he's going to open up, I think, an old insane asylum or something down in the area, and they don't like that. Guys, wake up. The left doesn't like you. They lie to you. That's what Carville's saying. That's what Pelosi's saying. The wrap-up smear is, I am going to lie to you. That's the wrap-up smear. And I'm going to get the press to print it so it looks authentic, and then I'm going to merchandise it. But because I lie to you, I'm going to trick you. So all of you people in the East Village that voted for Mandami, you were suckers. You fell for it. People were telling you not to fall for it. But now we're going to get to my next clip. I'm going to show Braveheart, the scene about, you allowed yourself to be deceived, okay? Because that's what's happening with Democrats. They are allowing themselves to be deceived. You do not have to be deceived anymore. There's plenty of information out there, okay? Plenty. You can have all the information. Everything Madami's doing was completely knowable. People like me were telling you these things. You chose to be deceived. Watch this scene.
You are my son, and you have always known my mind. You deceived me. You let yourself be deceived. But in your heart, you always knew what had to happen here. At last, you know what it means to hate.
Okay? The dad says, you knew what I was going to do. You let yourself be deceived. It's a great movie. Everybody should watch it. And he did. Okay? So these are the Democrats. If the Democrats didn't steal our money and steal our elections, there would be a 20% fringe party with a bunch of lunatic lefty, absolute, go to the mattress, die hard, never going to give it up lefty voters. That's not most people. Most likely it's not you if you're a Democrat voter and you're watching. You don't have to be deceived. That's what's going on. The wrap-up smear, lying, the Carville. Don't run on it. Don't talk about it. Lie about it and just get in. Okay? That's Bill Clinton. That's Barack Obama. And by the way, I say this often. I hope it comes off right. Unfortunately, Carville is right that you can trick a lot of people. Look at the women in East Village in New York City. You can trick a lot of people into voting for a candidate that way. Look at all of Virginia. Go back and look at the ads. Spanberger ran as a moderate. She didn't tell everybody she was going to raise 50 taxes and corrupt the elections and, do the redistricting. She didn't say that at all. No. There's always, I could name every single show. It's all a scam because it is, but that would be redundant. Okay? The wrap-up smear. That is the great launching point to understanding the Democrat Party. You heard Pelosi say it. Wait, I'm going to play this one more time because I think it's if I have it still. This is probably against all the right etiquette, but I'm going to play it again because I want to stress her saying it's a falsehood. It's not real.
We call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic. And
It's a tactic. Yeah. Okay. All right. The Democrat Party. This is how it goes. All right. So let's get into some specifics now. We got the Southern Poverty Law Center, who was indicted, money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, I think. What were they doing? They were paying Nazis, KKK guys, other haters, other racists to go out and do racist things, which then the Southern Poverty Law Center went and tricked their donors and said, see the awful world? We got to fight against that. That's the same thing. By the way, that's exactly ants in the pantry. That's exactly ants in the pantry. The defense that you've heard or you will hear is, oh, they were just paying informants, which is complete baloney. But let's go with it for a second. They were informants. Well, first of all, who are they informants for? You're a private nonprofit who gets tax exempt status that presumably that's tax exempt when we are taxing, so we're paying for you, okay? And you're informing for who? The government, the FBI, whoever, they're not supposed to have private companies working for them against us. That's not how it's supposed to work. And you can't inform to a private organization. What can they do? I ask that because I'm looking, saying, I've seen enough cop shows. I understand what informants do. What did these informants do? These informants didn't produce anything. Nobody went to jail that I can see from these informants. Nothing. In fact, it was the opposite. All that happened was the SPLC raised huge amounts of money. They produced the things that they use to do a wrap-up smear on Trump and the rest of us. I'm gonna. Where is it? Hold on a second. I want to play that. Okay, this is what I want to. It's not a play. We're gonna read it. Let's see here. This is. There it is. Okay. This is really a list. Okay. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay. The indictment describes a paid informant in the leadership chat that planned Unite the Right. Unite the Right is Charlottesville. The informant helped coordinate transportation to the rally at SPLC's direction. There was one publicly identified organizer whose documented role was transportation coordinator. And then it goes on to discuss all the things that he did. Why am I putting that up there? Well, what if he weren't doing those things? What if he weren't doing any of those things? They raised, I think it was like, what was it? I think it was close to 100 million or something right after this. They weaponized that. They did the wrap-up smear. They created it, okay? And then they did the falsehood. Trump never said the Nazis were very fine people. They edited things and they tricked a bunch of people. You don't have to be deceived. That's what was going on at the SPLC. And by the way, this is just the beginning, I suspect. Like, this is one organization and only a few examples. But they were paying these guys. I'll tell you one thing I'm curious about. Given, I used to hear these stories from the other side, from my grandfather, who was in the rackets. I am curious because now that we know that a bunch of these Aryan race guys, KKK guys, and other race-hating groups were being paid by SPLC. I'm curious if their brothers in those corrupt organizations knew they were getting paid. I'm curious. You'd think that might piss some people off. But get back to the informant side of it. What did they produce? They produced the material for the wrap-up smear. They didn't produce, something where the FBI could go in and arrest somebody. Why? Because it was all fake. It's all a charade. They did it so they could raise money, trick people to vote, and give material to merchandise over and over and over and over and over again to trick more people. Remember, it happened in 2017, the Charlottesville Very Fine People hoax. Biden uses it in 2020 to say that's why he's running. They merchandise this stuff forever. I have friends today, well, maybe not today, because now hopefully they've woken up, but not that long ago, who were willing to be deceived by the Very Fine People hoax, despite the fact that I would send them the real videos. You know who you are if you're watching. You know that you were willing to be deceived. You were like Robert the Bruce, okay? This is the Democrat Party. There are no policies that work, okay? And you don't have to be deceived. That's, it doesn't have to be that way. You can just choose to wake up, okay? Now, this next one I want to play. This is, well, I guess finally we're getting the awareness on this stuff. You see if that's the one. Okay, that's the one. Now, this is Congressman Gill, and he's talking about the very big picture. Let's listen.
The Democrat Party has for decades systematically grown and weaponized the administrative state against the American people, and the American people have had enough of it. Right now, we're talking about $2.7 trillion in improper payments since 2003. We're uncovering what could be the biggest money laundering scandal in American history. And the other side of the aisle could care less. They have no concern about where this money went, to what entities it went, to what governments, to what people or groups. Nothing.
Nothing. Okay? Now I'll tell you where he's wrong. He's completely wrong when he says it's 2.7 trillion since 2000 and whatever date. Doge at the beginning, when they jumped in, they said they found 4.7 trillion of untraceable outflows from the Treasury General Account. That's the main checking account for the government. 4.7 trillion a year, untraceable. Why was it untraceable? Because they wanted it untraceable. The swamp, government, elected class, elites, experts, everybody wanted it untraceable. Why? Because they're stealing our money. And if it's untraceable, you can't go get the guys who are taking it. And keep in mind, this is all also a money funnel back to the Democrats. How so? SPLC gives most of their donations, almost entirely their political donations, to the Democrat Party. And don't be thinking that the SPLC was some little nonprofit operating in Alabama, sweet little quaint Alabama. Oh, no. The SPLC had $1 billion in their endowment. Okay? They had something like 800 and something million. Go look it up. I had it yesterday on the screen. I wish I had it today. They had hundreds of millions, over $1 billion in assets. Okay? So they are no small organization. And by the way, IRS never thought to look at them, check their paperwork. No, that big nonprofit, mind you, nonprofit, they get special tax exemption from the IRS to not pay taxes as they're raising billions and billions of dollars. No concern? How about all of these nonprofits we see that are just totally fraudulent? Nobody looks at them? I grokked and perplexity'd two AIs to see, A, how many nonprofits there are. There's something like almost 2 million of them. And what both said was almost none of them get audited ever. Very rarely. Very, very rarely. Why? Because the elected class, the elites, and the experts, that's the bucket I put together, they don't want to because they're benefiting largely from that. They are benefiting from that. What Gill is saying there is we, ordinary Americans, I'm in front of a flag, I love my God, my family, and my country, ordinary American, our money is being stolen. by the elected class. And until Trump, nobody cared or looked into it. This SPLC stuff has been going on for years. Not new. This one goes back to at least 2017, and it goes back a lot further than that. So what else are we going to find? And by the way, still nothing from the IRS. Why aren't they looking into it? They've now been exposed. Total corruption. This is why Trump says he wants to get rid of all federal taxes on citizens, because it's not fair. It's unjust. Special people get special privilege. Stacey Abrams got $2 billion before Biden was out. Nobody looked into it. She filed all the right paperwork, same as anybody else. We should just assume that. This is what Gil's talking about. Okay, now to some degree, I'm a skeptic, and I see Gil and all the others. They're all playing us. They're just yapping, blah, 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 about the other party, and they're not doing anything. The poster boy for that is John Thune. We could change everything by passing the Save America Act, which 82% of Americans want. He chooses not to. Why? He doesn't want to exterminate the house. He wants there to be bugs in the house forever, so he can constantly say, see those awful Democrats, stick with me. He's not going to do anything. It's all a charade. Trump's the only guy who's actually working for ordinary Americans. You don't have to like him as much as I do, but you should be voting for him and his policies. Alan Dershowitz, we mentioned this the other day, he left the Democrat Party and thought that was enough, and it wasn't, and now he joined the Republican Party because he says, I cannot allow Democrats to be in control again. They are anti-American and anti-Semitic. That's from a very connected Jewish lawyer who lived, as far as I know, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. If you don't know it, they call it the People's Republic of Cambridge. Okay? By the way, can't help myself. Property taxes. I'm thinking about Cambridge. I'm thinking about Harvard. If you know Cambridge at all, Harvard sits on a huge portion of the acreage in the city of Cambridge, and certainly the most expensive. And they pay zero property tax because they're a nonprofit. They get that exemption. If that was taken away from them, which it should be, okay, they shouldn't get tax exemption, and our tax dollars go to them, and they have a $50+ billion endowment. That's frustrating, okay? But I start to think to myself, what would happen if their tax exempt status was taken away and the Cambridge City Council could suddenly tap Harvard for real estate taxes? I am sure there would be a real push-pull because the leftists on that city council would want the money, but they'd have to go after sort of the world capital of leftism in the United States, Harvard. So that would be an interesting fight to see. Pardon the diversion, but I had the divergence up there, but I had to go into that. All right. Gil is saying it's a corrupt scam and we're having our money stolen. The smear, the wrap-up smear, that's essentially how they're doing most of these things. And then we see it play out. Okay? We got to be aware of these things. We got to talk about these things. We got to share these things with other people and help wake them up. That's the whole goal. All right. I want to talk briefly about Virginia. Terrible result. We lost the referendum, but there was a lot of shady stuff that went on. But I mentioned this, was it yesterday? Tuesday. I mentioned there were lawsuits going on. And yesterday, one of the judges ruled and put a pause on everything. They're not going to allow the election to be certified until they resolve these constitutional issues around the question itself. I tried to get a clip and I just couldn't put it together in time. But essentially, well, there's a bunch of court cases, but it boils down to the fact that the way that this question was put on the ballot violated Virginia's state laws. That's the essence of it, okay? And it looks to me, who am I? I'm just an ordinary American. flag, God, family, country. But it certainly looks to me like they've got a heck of an argument, and it certainly looks to me like they're going to win it. I suspect all that means is this gets delayed, and the Democrats will come back and do it appropriately, and we'll just be here again. But a delay is good because we don't lose those 4 House seats, which is what we would lose. Okay, so that's good news, but it also shows you the treachery. The Democrats have essentially nothing to lose at this point. They're obviously nervous. If you see their attacks on Kash Patel, obviously he's doing well. He's got the SPLC thing. There was a guy named Joe DeGeneva. If you've seen this in the news, he is a prosecutor that was extremely pro-Trump and saw what was really going on. And he's being brought back in after years away from being an actual prosecutor into the U.S. Attorney's Office in Florida for the grand conspiracy case. So that's good. And then Devin Nunes, who was a congressman who really got to the bottom of all the Russia hoax stuff at the beginning. And I think Kash Patel worked for him at the beginning. He's coming back into the security side. And I think he's going to start working for the Trump administration on these issues. So those are good things. Okay. Now, as I always like to do, I checked Truth Social before I came in here. I want to play this clip, which has to do with the Supreme Court and John Roberts. John Roberts, from my point of view, seems to be obviously corrupted. Let's see. Hold on a second. Can I get this up there? Yeah, there it is. Let's listen to this. Hold on. Here we go.
He's got a column up on foxnews.com. He says that Chief Justice John Roberts has to bring in the FBI here to try to find these leakers. He writes in part, quote, "For the future of the court and the faith of the public, Roberts has to set his reservations aside and bring in the FBI to find the culprit. Most importantly, he has to guarantee total transparency and allowing the public to see the results wherever they may lead." Molly, we got about 30 seconds left. Final word to you here. Do you agree with Jonathan?
If you do not punish people for breaking the norms and the procedures and maybe even the laws that are governing the court here, you're going to see more of that. And the failure to really do a good investigation for the Dobbs leaker, I think we're seeing the fallout.
See that? That's bigger than just this one topic. What they're talking about there is they're talking about the leaks from the Supreme Court. The leaks that we went over are designed to allow one of the justices, the conservative justices, to get hurt. It's a delay tactic that the leftist judges are using. They don't finish their dissent. They leak it to the press. They try to gin up violence, and they delay it long enough to allow that violence to take hold. That's what they're doing. And what that's Molly Hemingway, and she's referring to something that Jonathan Turley, if you don't know him, he's a professor from George Washington University, who, 10 or 15 years ago was a strong Democrat. And over time, like Dershowitz and many people, he's woken up. And what he's being polite, okay? The Supreme Court is a very sort of closed society. It's a building. The people in those offices are finite. It's not like Congress. There's not thousands of people. You can absolutely know who leaked these things. Okay, it's like the cocaine at the White House. We can't figure out how it got here and whose it was in the most secure building on planet Earth. Please. They know exactly who it was. Same thing here. Jonathan Turley is being charitable. He's saying we have to bring somebody in. We already know who it is. Roberts isn't bringing the FBI in because Roberts doesn't want to publicize to the world that it was one of these leftist judges, Jackson, Sotomayor, or Kagan. It wasn't Alito. I mean, I'm an ordinary American and I can figure this out. It wasn't Alito. It wasn't Thomas. I mean, I suspect strongly it wasn't Gorsuch or Barrett or Kavanaugh. What benefit is it to them to draw attention to themselves in these ways? Okay. Could it have been Roberts? Could have been. He's been a traitor since the beginning. All right. I want to go to one more because I think it's I want to do a little update on Iran. Get rid of this, put that in there. Let's just read President Trump's Truth Social. I have ordered the United States Navy to shoot and kill any boat, small boat, blah, 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 that is putting mines in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. There is to be no hesitation. Additionally, our minesweepers are clearing the strait right now. I'm hereby ordering that activity continue, but at a tripled up level. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. Okay, why do I think that that's important? Again, he's using Truth Social to let all parties know, including the shipping companies, we are cleaning out the mines. He's letting the Iranians know. There's another one which I didn't put up where he basically says they don't know who the leaders are. They're fighting amongst themselves. And by the way, anybody who doesn't understand that when you get the enemy fighting and killing each other, that is a positive for the good guys. That's a positive. That's actually a dream in most scenarios because then they kill off some of their people. And that's good. So we're in a sort of a wait and see. It's what I think is like a quasi ceasefire, which is okay to me. And Trump is doing what he can do to open the straits. He's strangling them economically. Bessent has said he's got 14 organizations that they're sanctioning and going after their money who are trying to help fund them. So, it's working. Let's wait and see. For a forever war, it's not warring right now. It may again, but I wouldn't bet against Trump. Betting against Trump since 2015 has been a guaranteed loser. Everyone who's bet against Trump since 2015 has lost. Okay, that is today's show. If you like this content, which I hope you do, we're trying to fight this battle, left versus right. We're trying to get out good information. Do me a favor if you could, like, follow, subscribe, leave some comments, tell people about it, pass it on. If you got kids who are too far lefty, send them my way. Maybe they can hear this voice. Okay? Pass it on. We're trying to fight this fight, and it's super important. Very much appreciate you being here. We'll be back here tomorrow too, no doubt, to talk about another hoax or scam or fraud or theft from the Democrat Party. Until then, I'm rooting for you. Please root